Salvete omnes. We continue our read-along in the Nāvigātiō Sancti Brendani Abbatis, the voyage of St. Brendan the Abbot. We are in Caput 15, Fēsta in Diversīs Īnsulīs, feasts in various islands. Quadam vero die apparuit illis insula a longe, quasi nubes. On a certain day, there an island appeared to them afar, like a cloud or like clouds. There's a ambiguity in the Latin language on nubes. Could be either. Dixit Sanctus Brendanus, St. Brendan said, Filioli cognoscitis vos illum insulam. Sons, do you recognize that island? At ille dixirunt, and those said, Minime, no. At ille ait ego cognosco, and he said, that one, meaning Brendan, said, I know. Ipsa est inem illa insula in qua fuimos altera anno in cena domini. So it is that island itself in which we were the other year in the Lord's Supper in Cana Domina, where they celebrated Easter, ubi et noster bonus procurator comorantur, where our good procurator dwells. Tunc fratres coe perunt navigare acriter praegaudia, quantum vires eorum poterant sustinere. So then the brothers began to sail, or to row, I think would be better, very hard, because of joy, quantum vires eorum poterant sustinere, as much as their strengths had been able to sustain. Cum haec vir dii videsit, and with the man of God, meaning St. Brendan, having seen this, he said, Nolite puere stulte fatigare membra vestra. Don't, sons or boys, fatigue stupidly your members, meaning your arms and legs from rowing. Nonne Deus omnipotens est gubernator et nautor nostrae naviculae. Is not the omnipotent God our governor and sailor or captain of our ship? Dimitite sibi, quia ipse deriget nostrum iter sicut vult. So leave it, imperative there, to him. Quia ipse deriget nostrum iter sicut vult. Because he himself will direct our trip as he wants. So I think perhaps on a spiritual level, what's being emphasized is this idea of recognition, that this idea of having knowledge is a sign of having progressed in the monastic life. For example, many times in the Nāvigātiō, you have very holy men who know people's names before they're even introduced. Or here, Brendan sees an island and his men don't recognize it, but he does. So I think it's that idea of cognition or recognition that's being brought forth here. And if I could go off on a little bit of a philosophical tangent, the act of recognition is inherently moral. If you think of something like a chair, once you recognize the chair, your mind immediately takes the sense data provided by your body and assigns to it a category. You're like, well, that's a chair. But once you've recognized that it's a chair, there's a morality that comes along with that identification, because now you know what the chair is for. A chair is not good for eating. You would not take a chair and start gnawing on it. That would hurt. You'd probably fracture a tooth. Whereas you do know that the chair is good for sitting on. And of course you get, people in philosophy nowadays saying well, who's really to say what that chair is for? But by acknowledging it's a chair, they've already implicitly acknowledged that chairs have formal and final causes that dictate what they ought to be used for. So I think that might be what they're getting at here, is that the better you are at recognizing something, the better of a person you will be in a way. Similarly, when you have like the Sodom and Gomorrah account where you have angels looking like men go to the city, and the people don't treat them like they might treat an angel from God. They treat them as just some traveler and try to do horrendous things to them. Perhaps if they had known they were angels, if they had recognized that, they would have not engaged in their evil acts. Cum autem apropinquasent ad litus praedictu a Īnsulīs. So having approached to the shore of the aforesaid island, occurret idis obvium in navicula idem procurator. So the same procurator ran into their way in a boat. Et duxit illos ad portum. So this time, the procurator sails out to meet them. Et duxit illos ad portum, ubi praeterito anno ascenderunt de nave, and led them to the harbor where in the previous year they had gotten out of the boat. Magnificans Deum et osculons pedes singulorum, glorifying God and kissing each of their feet. Incipiuns Sancto Patre usque ad novissumum deacons, starting with the Holy Father and going to the most new, or the last, deacons. So again, they've got like a hierarchy in their monastic order that dictates who gets kissed first. Mirabilis Deus in sanctis suis. So God is marvelous in his saints. Deus Israel ipse dabit virtutum et fortitudinem plebi sui. So the God of Israel will give power and strength to his people. Benedictus Deus, blessed is God. This is from the Psalter. Finito iam versiculo, so having finished that verse, et omnibus ablatis de nave, and having taken everything out of the boat, extendit tentorium et praeparavit balneum, he put up a tent and prepared a bath. Erat inem cena domini, for it was the Lord's Supper. Et induit omnes fratres novis vestimentis, et fecit irorum obsequium per triduanum. And he dressed all of the brothers in new vestments, and made service for them for 3 days. Put a footnote there. He did service to them for 3 days. And then I note, it's best to translate that sentence idiomatically. Perhaps there's some symbolism going on here. This idea of a bath, of new clothes, is kind of reminiscent of baptism, right? Where you've put off the soiled garments of the old self, and you've now put on the garments of Christ. In the book of Revelation, we see the saints, the holy martyrs, below the throne of God, and they're dressed in new robes. So perhaps there's some symbolism there. Fratres quoque passionem Domini celebrabant cum magna diligentia usque in sabbatum sanctum. So the brothers were celebrating the Passion of the Lord, so this would be Good Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Cum magna diligentia, with great diligence, until the Holy Sabbath. Finitis ordinibus Dei Sabbati, so having finished the ordinances of the Holy Sabbath. Immolatisque victimis spiritualibus Deo, and having immolated spiritual victims to God. I assume this refers to the sacrifice of the Mass, the Eucharist, that is, because they're spiritual victims that they're immolating. Atque cena consumata, and having consumed dinner, dixit idem procurator ad sanctum benedanum et ad illos qui cum eo erant. So the same procurator said to St. Brendan and to those who were with him, Proficiscimini et ascendite navem, ut celebretis sanctam dominicum noctem resurrectionis, ubi celebrastis altero anno illam. So, set out, and ascend into the boat, that you might celebrate the holy Sunday of the night of the resurrection, where you celebrated it the other year, at diem similiter usque in sextum orem, and the day similarly until the 6th hour. Postea navigate ad insulum quae vocator paradisus avium. So afterwards, sail. This is still imperative here, plural imperative, because he's giving commands to the monks. So afterwards, sail to the island which is called the Paradise of Birds. Ubi fuistes in praeterito anno a Pascha usque in octavos Pentecosten, where you were in the previous year from Easter until Pentecost, et asportate vobiscum omnia quae necessaria sunt de cibo et potu, and take with you everything which is necessary of food and of drink. Ego vero visitabo vos die Dominica altera, and I truly will visit you on the other Sunday. Et ita fecerunt, and thus they did, onaravitque ipse navim panibus et potu carnibus ceteris deliciis, quantum poterant capere. And he loaded, he himself, I assume this would be the procurator who's loading the boat. He himself loaded the boat with bread and drink and other delicious meats, as much as they could carry. Sanctus Brendanus data benedictione, so Saint Brendan, having been given a benediction, ascended into the ship et coeperent statum navigare ad alium insulam, and they began immediately to sail to the other island. Cum autem apropinquasent ad locum ubi ascendere debuisent de navi. So therefore, having come to the place where they should ascend out of the boat, ecce apparuit iles cacibus quim altero anno dimiserunt. Behold, the cauldron appeared to them which they had lost the other year. So if you recall, they got out onto the back of Jasconius, the sea beast, the giant fish. They were started a fire under a large cooking pot so that they could salt some fish, some crude meats to condition them so that they wouldn't rot. And the heat of the fire caused Jasconius to start moving and to swim away, and their cacabus floated away. So now they've recovered it. It floated away and reached an island. This is why I imagine it as like a large cauldron shape, because it needs to be something that could float across the ocean to reach a beach. Tunc Sanctus Brendanus, ido ascendite de navi cum suis fratibus. Then Saint Brendan, having ascended out of the boat with his brothers, coepit cantare hymnum trium puerorum usque infinum, began to sing the hymn of the three boys until the end. Footnote there. The hymn of the three boys' youths appears to be the song by the three Israelites who were placed into the blazing furnace in Daniel chapter 3. I note this may foreshadow the insula fabrorum. And if you recall in that story, there's the Nebuchadnezzar, the king of either the Medes or the Babylonians, who makes a golden statue that all the people have to bow to. There's three Israelites who refuse to because that's idolatry, and Nebuchadnezzar has them cast into a blazing furnace. Hence, three young men cast into the furnace, and miraculously they are not harmed by the furnace. But indeed, when Nebuchadnezzar looks in, he sees a fourth man, like an angel of God, standing in there with them, which appears to be like a pre-incarnate Christ who's with those three boys, those three young men, protecting them from being burned. Finito praedicto hymno, having finished the aforesaid hymn, vir Dei amonebat suos fratres deacons, the man of God warned his brothers, saying, O filioli vigilate et orate ut non entretis in temptationem. O brothers, pray, or keep watch, and pray that you might not enter into temptation. Considerate quo modo Deus subjugat immanissimum bestiam subtos nos sine ullo impedimento. So consider how God subjugated the immense beast under us without any other impediment. Little note here. I think, why is he singing this hymn in particular, the hymn of the three boys? Possibly it has to do with the fire motif of the cauldron. The cooking pot was lost because they started this fire on the back of the beast. The flesh of the beast was irritated by the fire, and it flew away, and they were no longer able to continue saying masses or praying on the back of the beast. Whereas the three boys here, they had their own fire experience, but they did not let the fire or the threat of the flames keep them from worshiping the one true God. We move on. Fratres vero vigilabant sparsem per illum silvum usque in vigilias matutinas. So the brothers were keeping watch, and sparsum here means they're spread out through that forest until the morning vigil, or until the morning watch. Postea, omnes sacerdotes singulas misas Deo offerebant usque ad tertium orum. So afterwards, all of the priests were offering masses one by one to God until the third hour. Imo beatus brendanus cum suis fratribus ascendens navem immolabunt agnum immolacum Deu et dicebant fratribus. However, or further, the blessed Brendan with his brothers, ascending the ship, immolated the immaculate lamb to God, and said to the brothers, In altero anno hic celebravi resurrectionem Domini. In the other year, I celebrated here the resurrection of the Lord. Ita volo et hoc anno. And thus I would like to do this year. Inde profecti sunt ad insula avium. From there, they set out to the island of birds. And again, it's a little unclear. Is this immaculate lamb that they're immolating or burning, is it understood to be like a literal lamb, or is this a spiritual thing? Maybe it's, a specific religious rite that's being referred to. Propinquantibus autem ad portum destinatum ipsius insulae. So having approached the destinated harbor of that island, omnes aves cantabat quasi una voce dicentes. All of the birds were singing, like one voice sang, Salus Deo nostro sedente super thronum ad agno. So salvation belongs to our Lord, sitting upon the throne, and to the Lamb. This is from Revelation 7:10. And the Lamb here is a reference to Jesus Christ. Et iterum, Deus Dominos et in luxit nobus, constituite diem solemnum in consensis usque ad cornu altares. The Lord is God and has shone upon us. Appoint a solemn day in crowds up to the horn of the altar. This is Psalm 118. Tam vocibois quam alis resonabat Diu. So, as much with voices as with their wings, they resonated a long time. Because remember, these birds have wings that sound like a bell. Quasi dimidium orae, around half an hour. Usque dum sanctus pater cum sua sancta familia, until the Holy Father with his holy family, et omnibus quae erant in navi delatis, and everything in the boat having been unloaded, he resat in his tent, or he resettled into his tent. So they go to the island of birds, and these birds, who recall are angels taking the form of birds on feast days and Sundays, greet them by singing psalms. Ibi quoque cum suis familis celebravant festa Pascalia usque ad octovos Pentecostum. There also, with his servants, he celebrated the Paschal feast until Pentecost. Praedictus namque procurator venit ad illo sicut praedixerat. And the aforesaid procurator came to them like he had foretold. In die Dominico Octavius Paschae, in the Sunday of the octaves of Easter, portant secum omnia alamonia, quae ad usum vitae humanae pertenebant. carrying with him all supplies which pertain to the use or the enjoyment of human life. Cum austem raisidissent ad mensam, so having resat at the table, ecce, praedicta avis raisedit in prora naviculae, behold, the aforesaid bird resat into the, or sat down on the prow of the ship, extensis alis starapidantis busque sicut sonitum organi magni, extending his wings and making a noise like the sound of a great organ. Tunc vir Dei agnovit, quia ira voluit sibi indicare aliquid. Then the man of God knew that that one, meaning the bird, wanted to indicate something to him. I find this line a little humorous in that, like, St. Brendan's has this, like, great perception. He knows what islands are from afar off. He can know people's names before they're recognized. And here, he knows that the bird wants to indicate something when, like, it flies up to their boat and makes a sound like, you know, a giant organ. I think I would have picked up on this sign. Ait namque iadem avis, and the same bird said to him, iadem here is feminine to match avis, Deus proposuit vobis, quatuor loca per quatuor tempora, usque dum finiantur septum anni peregrinationis vestae. So God proposes or places or gives to you 4 places through 4 times until the 7 years of your pilgrimage is finished, which is, so he's about to get more travel plans. In Cana Domini cum vestro procuratore, in the Lord's Supper with your procurator, qui praesuns est omne anno, who is present every year. In dorso beruae Pascha celebrabitis, in the back of the beast, you will celebrate Easter, and this means Jasconius, the giant fish. Nobiscum festa Pascalia usque in octavos Pentecostem, with us the Paschal feast until the octaves of Pentecost, apud familiam albei nativitatem Domini celebrabitis, and with the family of Albi you will celebrate the birth of the Lord, or Christmas. So they've got a regular rotation for where they're sailing to celebrate these various feasts, which makes sense in that they're sailing the ocean in search of the promised land of the saints, but they also want somewhere stable on land to celebrate the holy feast days. Post septem annos, antecedentes magnae ac diversae peregrinationes. So after 7 years, great and diverse dangers preceding or going before, vobos invinietis terram repromissionis sanctorum quam quaeretis, you will find the promised land of the saints which you seek. Et ibi habitabitis quadragita diebus, and there you will live for 40 days. Et postea reducit vos Deus ad terram nativitatis vestrae, and afterwards God will lead you back. So we can see ducere here, so reducere is to lead you back to the land of your birth, meaning Ireland, their homeland. Sanctus Pater ut audivit, the Holy Father, as he heard this, prostravit se ad terram cum fratribus suis, referens gratias aut laudes suo creatore, laid himself to the ground with his brothers, referring or bringing praises and thanks, or thanks and praises to his Creator. Cum haec perfinicit venerabilis sinex, avis reversa est in locum suum. So the venerable old man, this means St. Brendan, having finished these things, the bird returned into his place. Poro, praedictus procurator, finita refictione dixit. So further, the aforesaid procurator, having finished dining, ablative absolute there, said, Deo adiuvante revertar ad vos in die adventus sancti spiritus super apostolos cum dispindiis vestiis. So, with God helping, this is in the ablative, and this is a participle here that's also in the ablative. So, God helping, I will return to you, and revertar there is definite. So, I will return to you in the day of the advent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles. This refers to Pentecost. Cum dispindiis vestris, with your supplies. Et accepta benedictione sancti patris. So, having accepted the benediction of the Holy Father, and omnium qui cum eo erant, and of everyone who is with him, reversus est in locum suum. He returned into his place. Poro venerabilis pater manset ibidem praedictus dies. So further, the venerable father, meaning St. Brendan, remained there in the same place for the aforesaid days. Consumatis itque diebus festis, having consumed therefore the days of the feast, Sanctus Brendanus fratribus suis praecipit preparare navigium et templare vascula ex fonte. So St. Brendan ordered his brothers to prepare to sail and to fill the vessels out of the fount. Ducta iam navis ad mare, so having now led the ship, or the ship, subject there, having been led now to the sea, ecce praedictus socius, behold, the aforesaid associate, meaning the procurator, cum came to the brothers with the ship, having been loaded with food, escis. So we can look at the glossary: food, victuals. Cumque hoc omnia posuisit in navicula sancti viri. So the way I interpret this is the procurator sails to them, because remember, he sails in a boat to get to them. He comes to the brothers with his boat, having been loaded with food. And the next, cumque hoc omnia posuisit in navicula sancti viri. So having placed everything, all of these things, into the boat of the Holy Father, so he transfers all the things into St. Brendan's boat. Osculatis omnibus, and having kissed, or having been kissed by everyone, reversus est unde venerant. He, meaning the procurator, returned from where he came. So they're all supplied, and they're ready for their next adventure, which will be in chapter 16 in the next video.